This is the final chapter of Sylvester. "Is anyone here?" he called out. His echoing voice in the silent house was the only feedback Stan got. Stan waited for a few moments, then asked the question again. This time, he expanded on it a little. "Is there anyone with me?" "Quietude," responded. Stan repeated the question, and he still got no response. He sat in this silence for a while and was ready to call it quits until he felt a cold, dry hand touch his shoulder. "I'm here." Although Stan had heard the familiar voice before, the owner of it had never put its hand on him. Fearing what the owner of it might possibly do now that it was in physical form, Stan rushed out of the bathroom, ran to his bedroom, and locked his door. He lay down on his bed next to Sylvester. The stillness had engulfed the house again. Sylvester weakly looked up at Stan. As much as he loved being with his best friend, he was hurting all over. The pain was unbearable, and he wanted all of it to be over. His best friend looked at him and started to talk. Even though Sylvester couldn't understand him, he could tell Stan was on the verge of crying. "Please, this isn't fair. I don't want anything to happen to you," he said as his eyes drenched and tears poured down his face. Stan didn't know what he would do without his furry friend. He thought about it a little longer and started to bawl into his pillow, and he gently began to pet Sylvester. "This is why I told you to reverse your wish," the thing in the bathroom said. Stan looked up. He saw something standing by his door, but his vision was impaired by his tears. He wiped them away. There stood a man. His right eye was in perfect condition, but his left eye was an empty void surrounded by dry blood. His skin wasn't looking too great either, but despite his state, Stan studied this man a little harder and came to a shocking declaration. "Victor Creed? Is that—" Victor cut him off. "Yes, it is." Normally, Stan would be shocked by this, but his other experiences had somewhat prepared him for this moment, but he still wanted answers. "How are you here?" "Ouija board allowed me to cross over. Before you used it, I couldn't have much interaction with the living," Victor said as he fell with a dipping bird Stan had on his dresser. "I was also that black orb that you kept seeing. Why are you haunting me?" "I'm not haunting you. I've never wanted to haunt anyone. I'm here to help you, just like how I helped other people who have lived here." Stan became confused. "Help me? Why? Remember that wish you made?" "No." Victor took a somewhat menacing step forward. "Are you sure?" "I'm positive." Victor snickered. "Well, I sure do." "What do you mean? Do you remember the day you took Sylvester to get testing done on him?" Sylvester let out a faint cry, as if to respond to Victor's question. "Yeah, of course I do." "You remember saying anything before you went to bed that night?" Stan thought long and hard until eventually he remembered. "Oh yeah, I wish Sylvester would stay forever." "We have a winner," Victor said as he clapped his hands. "Now, let's get down to business." He looked at Stan with a serious glare. "Do you know why you keep being chased by bloodthirsty animals?" "No." "It's jealousy, Stanny boy." Stan crinkled his eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "The animals you are seeing, they are dead, but they've come back from the grave to get you." A cold shiver ran down Stan's back like a snake. "Why?" "They're mad at you for messing with fate. Why is it fair that Sylvester gets to live, but they don't? What are they going to do?" Victor let out a long whistle. "Oh boy, I don't think you want to know. You just better pray they don't come." Stan's eyes grew big. "Who? The human zombies? You mean like people who died?" "That's right. Aren't you a zombie?" Technically, no, just a ghost who has more interaction with you. But I know what you're going through, Victor said as he stared forward. I know how much Sylvester means to you, and honestly, how could I not? Especially since I had it put myself. You did? Stan asked as his interest was fueled. Victor nodded his head and put a comforting arm around Stan. Her name was Cindy. Cindy the cat. She was the only cat at the pet store. No one was buying her. It was quite a shame. But when she saw my face, she was mine. A smile spread across Victor's dead face as he remembered that angelic day. And you want to know the craziest thing? My parents brought her for me right when they saw our bonding. And we just went into the pet store to get food for my fish. Stan listened with great fascination, and Victor continued his story. Anyway, years went by, and me and Cindy had our ups and downs, but despite all of that, we were best friends. As Stan continued to listen, he started to realize how much he had related to Victor's story. But then, there came the day when we had to put Cindy down. It was a horrific day for us, especially me, given that I was only 10 years old. Victor put a cold, dead arm around Stan's shoulder, which made him shudder a little. But you know what, Stan? Even though he's dead and I miss him, I'm glad the hell he went through was finally over. Suddenly, Victor's voice grew stern. But you put a horrible spell on your cat, young man. And if you don't get to burying him, those creatures outside are eventually going to get in and do the most unspeakable thing to you. And when you're gone, Sylvester will continue to be in pain forever. No matter what happens, slice his throat, cut his heart open, he will still be alive and suffering. Stan looked up with panic in his eyes. What will happen if they get... But before he could finish, there was a loud crash from downstairs, the sound of glass shattering, followed by loud footsteps going up the stairs, accompanied by the sound of a deep growling, which Stan instantly recognized. It belonged to the dead wolf he had seen outside. Realizing this, he stood there, unable to move, both from shock and from fear. Without thinking, Victor threw open Stan's window and climbed out. Quick, grab Sylvester and follow me. Hurry! And Stan did without hesitation. As he did so, he heard a loud bang outside his bedroom door. It was the wolf trying to get in. Luckily, the two were outside before it could, but the wolf couldn't be tricked, so it ran downstairs and out the door it had shattered. Victor ran ahead of Stan. Just keep following me and don't stop running, he kept shouting. Although Victor was pretty fast, Stan found he could still keep up. As he was running, though, he could hear faint groans and snarls coming from every side of him, which progressively got worse once they entered the forest. On the bright side, however, it gave Stan the motivation to run faster. But Stan knew this wouldn't last long, because before he knew it, his throat had begun to feel as dry as a desert. His running speed started to slowly decrease, and it didn't help that he also had to carry Sylvester, which his speed was also affected by. Eventually, Victor started to slow down, and a great sense of relief showered over Stan. Stan and Victor stepped into the area Sylvester was to be buried. It was an open area of forest, great for camping, if one liked sleeping over the burial site of a dead cat. Where should we bury him? Stan asked. We? This is a job for you, Stan, man. What do you mean? The spell will only wear off if the person who originally cast it does burying. If I help you, Sylvester will still be alive on the ground. Stan nodded to show he understood. I suggest in the middle somewhere," said Victor. "I don't have a shovel, but the soil is pretty soft. You can just use your hands." Then he laid down to rest against one of the forest trees. Stan began to dig lackadaisically at first, but picked up the pace when he heard a faint moaning sound, which gradually got louder and louder and accompanied by snarls, growls, and roars. The sound began to get closer and closer until eventually the creatures Stan had encountered, the wolf and the cats, began to surround him, ready to strike. And if that wasn't enough, there were also living dead humans as well. One had an eyeball hanging out of his eye by a red piece of bloody thread. One had blood all over herself, and another had part of its flesh burned to a crisp. All three of them were ready to go in for the kill as well, but Stan had already wrapped Sylvester up in a blanket and gave him a tearful goodbye. A heavy weight started to grow into Stan's chest when he threw the first mountain of dirt on top of Sylvester. This weight got heavier and heavier the more dirt he threw on him. Once he was finished, however, the horrible, living dead creatures vanished, but only one stayed behind. Victor. Stan started to burst into tearful sobs, which took off the great weight in his chest. Seeing that he was sad, Victor went over and began to comfort Stan. "He's alright, Stan," he said. "He's not in any more pain. He's safe now." "Yeah, but I'm never going to see him again," Stan said through incomprehensible sobs. "Of course you can. Sylvester may be gone, but the memories you shared with him will live forever, along with his spirit." Stan began to calm down, but Victor could still tell he was sad, so he continued with his comforting. "And don't forget, if you ever feel sad, you can always talk with your parents and they will help you out. You can also come here anytime if you ever want to visit your cat again. He'll always be right here." Or I can think of the times I had with him, Stan said. Victor let out a laugh. "You can do that as well, Stanny boy." Suddenly, a bright light appeared in the middle of the area, and Victor started to walk toward it. "Where are you going?" Stan asked as he gripped Victor's wrist. "I have to go back to the afterlife." Stan finally understood. "Goodbye," he said. "Thank you for helping me." "Anytime, man. And don't forget about what I said." "I won't. I'll say hi to Sylvester for you." "Thank you." Stan watched through tears as he saw his new friend enter the void and vanish. He was all alone in the forest. The only sounds now were that of crickets. He stayed in Sylvester's burial site for a while before giving a final so long while holding back tears. Then he started walking back home. Although Stan was devastated that his best friend Sylvester was gone, he was glad that he wasn't in pain anymore and no longer had to see him suffer. The end. And that's the end of Sylvester. Yeah. I hope you all enjoyed it. Next year, I'll have an extra scary story for you all.